Welcome to the Niche Pursuits podcast. Today we are talking with Noah Bragg, and we're talking all about a side project that he built from scratch, a SaaS product, and sold 2.5 years later for $300,000. The product is Potion, and it's a bolt-on to Notion, the popular SaaS online company. And Noah comes on board to share the A to Z, the start to finish of how he built this. He did build in public, and so that's something we spend some time talking about. From the very beginning, he was sharing regularly, almost daily, with his following on Twitter and YouTube about what he was building, and that led to it being an initial success. That was actually where his first 75 customers or so came from. We talk about Product Hunt, which is where he turned to for his next round of customers, what he did on Product Hunt, and he shares a bunch of tips for what he thought led to it being successful with Product Hunt that I really enjoyed learning about. Noah shares then the growth pattern, the hurdles he had to overcome, some of the times when he had plateaus. He actually considered selling it at one point when the churn was getting too high. And so he really shares a lot of the details about kind of the challenges that go along with growing something like this. He did go on to sell it for $300,000 just over 2 years later. It was earning over $6,000 per month in recurring revenue. And so we kind of finish off the conversation talking about how do you determine when to sell something, when to keep it, what to do to grow it, these sorts of big questions that I know a lot of people have as they're considering their various side hustles, their websites, their projects. And Noah has a lot of great thoughts to share. So I think you get a lot of value out of this interview. It's one of those really inspirational stories about an idea that ended up going on to make someone six figures in sale price plus the monthly earnings that he had along the way. But you also get a really A to Z practical step-by-step guide in how Noah started this that I think you might be able to apply to some of the ideas you might have. All right, enjoy. Before we jump into the podcast, I wanted to let you know that today's episode is sponsored by Search Intelligence. Here's a short clip of Ferry from Search Intelligence showing you how their agency built digital PR links to a client's website.
What a crazy campaign. How to Sleep on Your Back. This campaign got us links in Huffington Post, Glamour magazine, Mirror, and lots of other great news publications. Let me show you how we've done it. It was so simple. Our sleep client provided us with expert commentary about how to train yourself to fall asleep on your back. They also gave advice on why it's best to sleep on your back. Once we've had this information, we went to Muckrack and searched for journalists that consistently write about sleep and well-being. We've sent these journalists the advice provided by the client, and within 1 day the links started flowing in. Glamour magazine, a DR81 website, picked it up. Huffington Post, DR88, Mirror UK, DR90. A massive avalanche of links blasted to our client's website with this simple yet effective campaign about how to sleep on your back. I hope this inspires, and I hope you'll use this technique to land massive links to your or your client's website.
If you want similar link building PR campaigns for your website, head to search-intelligence.co.uk and get in touch with them now. And welcome back to the Niche Pursuits podcast. My name is Jared Bauman, and today we are joined by Noah Bragg. Noah, welcome on board.
Hey, thanks for having me, Jared.
It's gonna be great to have you. You're a build in public kind of guy, which means that you're going to be an instant fan of the Niche Pursuits audience here. And today we're going to really dive deep into this story you have of how you basically built a business in public, online, and went on to sell it. We'll get to hear all the details. But before we get into that, can you maybe give us some backstory on who you are, kind of some of the things you've been involved in over the years, kind of catch us up to where you started this project we're going to talk about today?
Yeah, well, in the beginning, where I really got into like building things, making things was actually probably like in high school. I started basically started with a YouTube channel. I don't advise people to go back and watch that YouTube channel. It's probably be pretty embarrassing, but I made like Let's Play and game stuff, and for whatever reason, creating videos got me just into I enjoyed creating. I kind of found that was something I was into, and that kind of got me into the computer world, programming world, computer science, and so then I decided to go to college for computer science, And I kind of just always had some kind of side project I was working on, some kind of side business. So kind of ever since then, I was always building things, making things. Worked at a couple of different tech companies after college, but still had like different side businesses. And so, yeah, I've probably been doing the entrepreneur thing for about 5 years-ish or more, a little bit more now. Had one of my first startups where I quit my job to kind of do it with a buddy for a year. That one didn't work out that well. In that case, it was called Coffee Pass. We were trying to like kind of do more of the VC thing, like raise money, build like a huge business. And, it didn't work out. But through that, I learned a lot and kind of decided like, I kind of want to do more of this like indie hacker, bootstrapper kind of way of doing things. And, I kind of found a community online of people doing that. And I was like, okay, I think that might be a better route for me where it's not as stressful. You kind of get to just build what you want to build. It doesn't have to be a huge business. Maybe build it, solo like I've done so far, or maybe small team or something like that. And so that's what I've done with the last couple businesses. Support Man was a micro SaaS I did, and then Potion is the most recent one that's done pretty well. So yeah, I've had fun with that, just like creating things and making stuff online.
I mean, you kind of, maybe before we drill into the details, but one high level question, you kind of stratify both sides of building a business, which is this super kind of, you called it indie hack, sort of building a business, very lean, very simple. And then you also have this go out and get investment, raise VC, all that stuff. Like, having seen both sides, I know obviously it seems you land on the side of being lean, but maybe why are the reasons that you would landed there, and what are the reasons somebody would consider VC, or what situation would make it good to go down that road?
Yeah, I mean, for me, like it just seemed like doing the bootstrapper route, like it just gave a lot more optionality to make a business that could actually like succeed, because the targets that you have to hit just aren't near as high. Where kind of with that first business, that was more of a startup kind of strategy. It was kind of like if we didn't raise a lot of money and like go through like we were gonna, like, the business model wasn't even there until you get to scale, basically. And so it was just way riskier of just like, you even hear of like Uber and some of these other big startups where it's like they're kind of like just losing money for years before they can maybe even get to a place where they're profitable. It's that kind of business model that it can definitely work, but I just think it's a lot more risky and a lot more stressful. And so that's kind of why I've decided to go kind of more the bootstrap route. Not to say like, even I've been thinking for the future, like I think I'd be okay raising some money. It's just, I want to kind of do it in a way that's hopefully on my terms, like maybe do it later after I've kind of gotten things working and kind of can see a path that makes sense, where I'm using the money for a specific purpose, where it's not, I'm just going to have to keep raising and raising and raising like some startups kind of do. So that's how I think about it. Obviously, you can do either way, and I haven't had a ton of experience with the VC route. Like that first time was, we were kind of just in the early stages of just trying to raise money and stuff. We didn't even raise that much before we kind of started to see things weren't working out very well. So I haven't gone down that path super far to really have a ton of experience with it, but this is kind of the path I've chosen kind of going forward.
Yeah, makes sense. Yep. Yeah, you highlighted a lot of the things that are healthy considerations when it comes to raising money and like building a big business. It's a much different proposition. So, well, let's talk about Potion, because that's what we're here to talk about today. And I always like to ask at the outset, just to give people a little bit of an insight, like maybe tell us a little bit about what it is, and maybe walk us through just where it ended for you, where it ended up for you, where it's at today, and then we can kind of unwind the story of how you created it.
Yeah, so Potion is a website builder built on top of Notion. So it's very much built for Notion users, people that love using Notion. It allows you to just kind of do all your content through Notion, and then Potion does the hosting of the website and kind of updates to whatever you kind of change your Notion pages to. Potion will reflect that, so that you kind of have a very easy setup for your website, where you don't have to, go into like a WordPress and change things and do that kind of thing. And it was very much so kind of targeted at like pro consumers, other people that are creating a business maybe, or trying to sell something online. And so kind of built it, started at around 2.5 years ago, built it up to over 6,000 MRR. And then about 2 months ago now, sold it for 300K.
Congratulations.
Thanks. Yeah, it was fun.
That's super cool. And I think you were saying at one point I read that it really, once you built it, it wasn't taking very much of your time. And I think that's probably the most interesting piece. Like, it's one thing to build a business that is making $6,000 a month. It's another thing to sell it. It's another thing when you share how many hours. I think you said you were spending only a couple hours a week on it once you got it off the ground.
Yeah, that's true. And I guess to add a little more color to that, I feel like with any business, it's like you can do that where it's like I got to a point, where I was spending a couple hours a week on it. But there are points where it's like, all right, maybe something breaks. Now you got to spend more time, or it almost felt like you can use up kind of like, say like for 6 months, maybe I spend less time on it. In some ways, the business is maybe falling behind a little bit, maybe against competitors or just on the marketing side. And then to kind of keep it going, you might have to go back and spend more time on it. I think that's kind of where I was at with it, where I wasn't spending a ton of time on it, but at the same time, maybe I felt a little bit like maybe I'm not getting as much out of this because I'm not doing it. And so it's all kind of a little bit of a trade-off there. But yeah, I kind of got it to, where I wasn't spending all my time on it, which was nice.
That's great. Yeah. Well, why don't you, let's unpack this story. I mean, I think like I mentioned at the outset, you went with a build in public model. Maybe let's go back to the early days of Potion and what gave you the idea for it. And then if I could ask a second question, like, why the build in public? And because you shared a lot along the way. So I'm just curious where the idea was, and then why do it in front of everyone.
Yeah, so the idea kind of came around this assumption I had that for an indie hacker, for a solo entrepreneur, it was a great kind of strategy to build on top of another platform, just because you kind of your users are already there, like you kind of know who they are. They're people that are using that platform, and it's kind of easier to do marketing because of that. A lot of times these platforms have like a marketplace you can put on your product on, and you get customers that way. So I thought it made a lot of sense for an indie hacker kind of business. And so I was looking for different platforms to build on top of. I had been using Notion for about a year by that time. And the other trend I was kind of seeing is, these other platforms like Intercom or Slack. Like I had talked to a couple of the entrepreneurs of, people that built on top of those platforms, bootstrappers building little tools and things. And the ones that seemed to do well were ones that were early to those platforms. Like I could kind of see that pattern, like they had gotten there before maybe the business grew a ton, Intercom grew a lot more, things like that. And so then that made like Notion kind of pop up in my mind, because Notion was, fairly new. It was kind of, people were starting to talk about it a lot, but they didn't have like a API. They didn't have like a marketplace yet. So it seemed like, okay, maybe this is early days to kind of jump on that Notion wave. And so that's kind of where I started looking for ideas on top of Notion. And I saw this other tool that someone had randomly put together called Fruition, which was kind of this really hacky, put together kind of thing where it wasn't a paid tool or anything. It was just they kind of showed you this little guide of how you could hack some code together on Cloudflare to point your custom domain to your public Notion pages. So it wasn't like a real website or anything, but and it was, you had to kind of know how to set that up. But I saw hundreds of people had used that. And so that kind of made me think like, oh, maybe there's like actually something here. Like that kind of showed there's demand for people are like wanting to have like a website kind of attached to Notion. And so that's kind of where the idea for Potion I came up with that. And, kind of talked around, asked some people what they thought, and started to see like, okay, I think there's something here. And that's kind of when I started on it. And then with the build in public, kind of with my earlier micro SaaS support man, I had started to kind of share more openly about that on Twitter and other places. And I just saw that I really enjoyed that. It was something that actually kind of was very motivating to me to like put out there what I'm trying to do. And now it's like people are out there kind of keeping me accountable, and that just seemed to work really well for how I work and motivating me. So I really enjoyed that part of it. I enjoyed trying to help other people with what I'm sharing. So it just made a lot of sense to me that Potion is, it's the target customers are other entrepreneurs, other creators, and that's usually the kind of people that like following build in public kind of stuff. And so it just seemed like a really good fit for the business and what I like to do, where it made sense to just kind of share it all and do the build in public kind of thing.
It's really strategic on your part. I mean, they talk when you're starting a business, understand your target market. And clearly, a lot of people will say build in public, the accountability portion, and the ability to force you to kind of hit goals or milestones or not leave the project behind. But not a lot of people, when they talk about building in public, talk about the fact that, well, hey, I identified my target market is X, and X loves to watch people build stuff because that's what they do, and they hang out on Twitter, so I'll build in public on Twitter. That's really strategic on your part.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, that's what I try to do. And some in a lot of ways I didn't see it as marketing, but it kind of was marketing in a way. But I mean, I guess that's what makes good marketing is when it doesn't feel like marketing. At least it didn't to me, but yeah, it kind of was.
Yeah, I mean, and it's authentic too. That's a third benefit of it. Yes, it's going to hold you accountable to some degree, and yes, you're really talking to your target market, but you're also kind of showing yourself as an authentic creator, which people love. People tend to like that and tend to kind of gravitate towards brands that are more authentic. So I think it's really smart.
Yeah.
Kind of got my wheels spinning already. So let's talk about those early days. A big problem a lot of people have when they come up with an idea is like getting the product out the door. Sometimes costs can overrun, and I won't go through all the things that can go wrong, but how were the early days of getting the product out the door? How did you build it in a way that you kept costs down? And just curious about that process.
Yeah, one of the good things early on, like in the early days, is there was starting to be a little open source community around this project called React Notion X, where different developers were kind of building kind of like an HTML kind of builder around Notion, where it would bring Notion data and then turn that into HTML that kind of looks and is designed to look kind of like Notion. And so basically I jumped into that open source community and started like helping with that and using it for Potion. And it was kind of nice because there's, it's not just me working on this one project that then helps, my business, but it's helping other people. And so then I'm not having to do it completely alone. So that was one thing that definitely helped because, it's a pretty big lift to kind of, in some ways, replicate Notion and what it looks like. And so that open source project really helped with that side of things and helped kind of make that go faster with the building side. I've been doing the software development stuff for a while. And so obviously like that helps having just that experience. I think it took around 2 months to get to like my MVP, like first version of Potion before I kind of did like an early access kind of launch with it. So it took a little bit of time, but not too long. Like I didn't want it to take forever before I could start to get feedback, have people trying out the product and see how it works and get some feedback if I should keep doing what I was doing. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of, I guess that's kind of what the early days kind of shaped up to be. And like I was, doing the build in public again was very motivating. Like I was making like a 2-minute video almost every day, especially in those early days, just kind of sharing the progress, sharing what I was doing. And so that definitely made me feel like, all right, I need to like keep working on this, keep making things happen. And at that time, like I had a full-time job. So it was just like a part-time thing. Like I would come back in the evenings. Actually, no, it was a lot of the times I'd do like an hour and a half or so before work and then maybe another hour in the evening, to build out that first version, and then, work a little bit more on the weekend. So I think what it was I was just so confident that I thought it was a good idea that was really motivating to like, okay, I think this is going to work. I just need to like put in the time to do it. And so that's what gave me kind of the fire to like make it happen in those first couple months and try to like build something out and get something out the door.
How much experience did you bring? You mentioned you had some experience, so I'm referencing that, but how much experience did you bring with building, call it software? How much of this did you do yourself versus working with a developer? And again, just thinking about the person who's listening who spreads the range of not having any, dev experience all the way up to somebody who does have a lot of experience and maybe taking an idea and going forward with it.
Yeah, so by that point, I was definitely blessed to have some experience in doing software development. So by that time, I'd probably been in like tech companies for 5 years, like doing web development, mobile development for different tech companies. But then on top of that, it was probably it's hard to count businesses from some of the early ons where it's like, it was some side project for a couple months, but probably like my fifth kind of business that I've done, building on the side. So yeah, I built everything myself and didn't really need any help on the software development side just because I've had that experience, which definitely helps kind of get the ball running quicker, I think. Yeah, that doesn't mean it's not possible if you haven't had that experience or if, you maybe need to get someone to help you do some of the building part. But that's how it kind of worked for me.
Yeah, it's great. So let's talk about the early days of launching the product, making money, getting customers. Maybe walk us through that first process that you went through. And again, you outlined this. By the way, for everybody listening, I'll include a link in the show notes to this kind of summary Twitter thread you did on the process and where I learned a lot about it. But talk through those first customers and kind of what you went through and what you shared about how you got those first few customers in the door.
Yeah, so I got the first customers from Twitter from doing the build in public. And I'd say like my first 75 customers were from Twitter. And so that was where it was, the building public was definitely beneficial for me, where I didn't feel like I had to go out. Like for a lot of my other businesses, like it was, really hard to like get those first couple customers. And it just kind of felt like, I had to go and like message people and talk to people. And it was just a really hard thing. Where if this, like, it was just like, I was just like kind of sharing what I was doing. And actually my first tweet about Potion, like building in public, was actually a tweet where I said like, I'm going to start building in public, or I'm going to start building a SaaS in public tomorrow or something like that. It was like this really short thing. And then like a couple like bigger like tech Twitter accounts saw that and like retweeted it. And that tweet got me like 1,000 followers within 24 hours. And I didn't have that many followers back like in that when I started. And so that was kind of the start of it. That was definitely like a nice little push of like, oh wow, like there's already from the beginning, people are interested in what I was doing. I think another thing to kind of help with that is that, I don't know, like 2.5 years ago, I don't think the build in public wasn't as like everyone was doing it. I feel like nowadays it feels like kind of everyone's doing the build in public on Twitter. And so it's really crowded, which, it makes it harder to like, have people kind of be interested or see what you're doing because just a lot of people are doing it. And so I think that was another timing thing that helped, where I was kind of starting to do the building in public earlier when it wasn't as a crowded thing. So that's where some of those early tweets maybe did well and people started following along. But yeah, that's where kind of the first customers came from. The pricing of the product was super, like I just, I was very kind of almost self-conscious of like, oh man, I don't know about this. Like, so I priced it really cheaply early on. Like, I think it was like $6 a site was like my first pricing, where now it's up to like $12 a site, which is probably still cheap. But yeah, so I kind of started it out cheaply, which kind of just got people in the door and kind of just started learning from those early users. I did like an early access for the first 2 months. And I think on like day 2 is when I got my first customer. So things just kind of went fairly quickly from then on, just I think, again, because of kind of the things that were happening on Twitter and people were seeing what I was doing. And I think the problem kind of fitted, it kind of fit a narrative of Notion that was going on well. Like 2022, I think I saw something that showed that Notion was the fastest growing startup in 2022. So, timing is really, there's some things that I don't have control of that were definitely like a blessing, where it's like, putting myself on top of Notion, where Notion was doing really well, and some of those things definitely helped the business do well because of that.
Yeah, we interviewed somebody a while back now, I don't even know, a year or two ago, that kind of was on the early days of the Airbnb launch and were able to kind of ride that wave. And they had a website that was really, I don't remember the details, but they were kind of piggybacking off Airbnb. And, Airbnb obviously had this, meteoric rise at one point. And, so it sounds like you're able to kind of piggyback off what Notion is doing, which
Yeah.
they've been killing it. So you were on the early days of that, the early days of building public. Perfect storm.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely. I feel blessed that that it worked out that way.
Yeah, but you also had insights. I mean, the flip side of that, it's easy to look back. Hindsight's 20/20, as they say. It's easy to look back and say, oh, look at perfect timing with Notion. But the thing about it is also like you don't know that Notion's actually going to go on to explode like they did. Like it's a bit of a risk, right? What if you decided to build this product for Notion and it goes the opposite way and no one's really interested in Notion a year or two later? So it's also got some risk to it, but you took that chance and it worked out. So it's also fairly strategic, but it doesn't always go that way. So good for you.
That's true.
I'm just doing some math here. I have down that you got at some point in some number of months about 75 initial customers from Twitter, and at $6 a month. I mean, that's $450 a month in MRR, monthly recurring revenue. That's I don't know how you feel. That seems like a pretty good launch for not having to do any marketing and spend on that.
Yeah, for sure. Like it was all organic, and I think that those first 75 customers was in like 2 months time, I think. So yeah, it was pretty good to like start out and get it kind of rolling that quickly. Definitely kind of showed me like, okay, I think there's something here. Like I can keep building on this, making it better, keep growing it. Definitely was a positive response.
Did you ever sit down at any point and just kind of come up with like a marketing plan, or I'm going to start here and I'm going to try to get, my first 75 customers this way, and then I'm going to need my next 50 customers this way? Or was it just a really organic process of launching and growing the brand?
I mean, I definitely kind of worked through different like marketing things, like what could I do to make the business grow, make it better. I think earlier on, kind of the plan was, just kind of do the launch on Twitter, kind of share on Twitter. And then once I kind of got things going, to do a product hunt launch, just because I've heard like, different kind of indie businesses have done pretty well from doing a good product hunt launch and getting that to kind of, if you get, number one of the day or number one of the week, like you can get a decent influx of people. And so that was kind of the strategy then. Other than that, like I didn't have a ton of strategy other than just like continuing to kind of build in public, make the product better. Later on though, I kind of, had to kind of dig down and feel and kind of figure out some more marketing strategies that would kind of get me to the next level. And basically there was two of those. One was really trying to get the SEO for the site to kind of build up, just get a lot more organic traffic coming to the Potion website to get new users. And then the second was kind of building out an affiliate program where I could have some different affiliates, Notion creators, people that maybe have a following on Twitter or YouTube or other places, just talking about Potion more, sharing about Potion and getting, sharing a cut with them, but getting more customers coming in that way. So those were kind of my main marketing strategies, but those came a little bit later, maybe after the first year of running the business.
You mentioned Product Hunt. Let's talk about that. I'm curious your experience with it and how it did for you. And, it seems like the perfect type of product to go on somewhere like Product Hunt.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, I think, again, like it seems like Product Hunt's target kind of users are other entrepreneurs, other creators. And so, yeah, Potion, I feel like the customer base fits that like perfectly. I've even seen over the last couple of years, like it seemed like almost anything Notion related would do a pretty good, like have a pretty good launch. There's just a ton of different Notion kind of add-ons and products and templates and things that seem to do well on Product Hunt. And so, yeah, I think those it was a really good market or community for me to kind of launch to. And so, yeah, the launch on Product Hunt went pretty well. I was first of the day, first of the week. I think, I'm trying to remember the numbers. I think it was somewhere around 1,500 upvotes on the product, on Potion for that first Product Hunt launch. And so that was definitely kind of the second kind of influx of growth for the business. Yeah, I mean, like I probably got like my next 100 customers from Product Hunt more or less within like the next 2 months of doing that launch. But I was a little bit strategic with it. Like I wanted to make sure the product was good, like the product was ready before I did a launch. Like some people will launch on Product Hunt like day one or week one of their product being built and launched. And I was kind of, took a kind of more conservative approach of just like waiting. I I think I waited around 5 months or so before doing the launch just to make sure, like, did I have a product that people actually liked, that was good, that I wanted to keep doing and building. And then also it really helped to have like an email list. Like I'd already kind of grown up an email list to around 2,000 people just by building Potion, other customers and things like that, to where I could kind of get their support for the product hunt launch as well. So I think some of those things helped it to do better for that product hunt launch, which then kind of made it grow more there. So that was definitely, worked out well for Potion with the product hunt stuff.
And you can stay generic in your answer, but just generally speaking, like what are the details behind a product hunt launch? Is it just really discount driven, or do you have to kind of package your product in a way that makes it really attractive for someone who might not know much about it to jump on board? And how do all the cuts and things work? Just again, so people can kind of think through if that might be a good approach for something they're thinking through.
Yeah, I mean, I think you definitely want to do, put your best foot forward and kind of getting some good like images. I think like even a video, that those are some of those things that go up on the product hunt page. Like if you have, good images and video that kind of get people to want to click into your page and check it out more. Those are definitely some important things to a product hunt launch. But I mean, what definitely worked for me is just having like support of like your community. I think in some ways that is almost more important to have, people from Twitter or your customers that really want to just like kind of get behind you and support what you're doing and help kind of push your launch forward by supporting it with upvoting and commenting and things like that. Like Product Hunt seems to kind of put products up higher if they're getting a lot of comments, a lot of replies, and then of course like upvotes. So those are some of the things that definitely helped. And so that can be hard to pull off. And so anything you can do to kind of build kind of some trust and loyalty with a group of people that can then kind of help to build to help your product hunt launch go well is I think kind of what you need to do. And that's where, again, like going back to the build in public, I think was really helpful for this, because with build in public, I was trying to be helpful to other people, share what I was doing, hopefully teaching them some things. And if you're valuable to other people, you give to them. They're, once you ask every once in a while, like, hey, can you support me on product hunt? Like, they're hopefully more than likely to kind of come back and support you in that. So I think that's kind of what happened in my case. That was that worked out really well with that. So yeah.
Are you able to share any details about how many people you ended up getting on board from the product hunt launch?
Yeah, I mean, so it's kind of estimates. Like I think around 100 new customers from within like the next 2 months after I did that product hunt launch. And so it was it's hard to say if they all came from product hunt, but it was pretty clear that like that, at least that boost kind of gave even an awareness, even like on Twitter and stuff, where eventually those people then kind of came around and tried out the product, and some of those ended up going to paid. I do have the numbers of like even like that day, like number of page views, number of customers that signed up, and then those that went to paid, but I don't remember the specifics of like the day of numbers, but they're probably somewhere on my Twitter feed somewhere along a whiles back.
Good. We'll give people a little. They really want to know. They can go digging. People are good at digging, so that's fine. They can go.
Yeah.
Good. Today's episode is sponsored by Search Intelligence. Here's a short clip of Ferry from Search Intelligence showing you how their agency built digital PR links to a client's website.
High-tier backlinks in publications such as Daily Post, MSN, Birmingham Mail, and many more. Let me show you how we've done it. The campaign was pretty simple. We looked at the number of Instagram followers for each contestant in the Dancing on Ice show that aired in January. We sorted the contestants by the most popular ones. Now we've had the most influential Dancing on Ice contestant. Then we've also used an Instagram earnings calculator to calculate how much every contestant could make from one post on Instagram based on the number of their followers and engagement rate. Then we put these findings in a nice press release and an email, and we found the relevant journalists with a tool called Roxhill, where we looked at journalists who covered the show in the past 30 days and sent the findings and the press release to these journalists. And then the links started landing like this and this and this and many more. I hope this inspires and shows you that you can build links with simple and basic campaigns.
If you want similar link building PR campaigns for your website, head to search-intelligence.co.uk and get in touch with them now. So, I mean, we're not at the point where you've launched the product. You got those initial, I think you said 75 customers or so. You did a product hunt, launch another 100 or so. Like, where do we go from here? Because we still got probably a year and a half of you continuing to build this product and get it to the point where it was making, I think I have down over $6,000 a month in MRR.
Yeah, so I mean, kind of there going on, like those were kind of the two inflection points that were kind of like quicker, like quick wins kind of things. But kind of going on from there, it was kind of just like a slow, like a lot of SaaS businesses, I think it's kind of just compounding growth. Like if you just get a couple new customers every month, your old customers stay around. It's just going to slowly grow over time. And so a lot of Potion's Life, I was growing at around 6% a month. And a lot of Potion's Life, I had a churn of around, in the early, like the first year, it was actually kind of high. It was more around like 10 to 12% churn, which is a little bit high. But then later in the life of the business, I was able to get that down to like 5%. So a lot of Potion's Life of the business was kind of adding to the product, adding different features, trying to like add different features to help people, kind of push people to upgrade to a higher price plan to kind of get make some more money those ways. But then a lot of it was like fighting churn and just like trying to get my product to a place where people would stay around a little bit more and get those churn numbers down. I got to a point, this was summer of last year, where my churn basically got to the point where it was even with my growth. And so that was kind of a rough period. I was in that kind of plateau for around 6 months where the business wasn't growing because the churn was just too high. And so, yeah, I was trying to figure out what to do about that, trying to make the product better. But I kind of lost some motivation in that period as well, just because I think when I think burnout is kind of when you work on something, you're putting all this effort into something and the results aren't what you're hoping for, expecting. And so that's kind of what happened with me. And so then I kind of lost motivation. So there was about six months there where I just wasn't working as much on the business because I didn't have that motivation like I had in the past. And so that was one of the hard portions of the business. And kind of what got me out of that was actually, I was thinking to maybe sell the business at that point, to be like, well, I don't know, like maybe not sure what's not working, why things aren't going well. Maybe now is the time just to sell, to kind of go on to something else. And so I attempted to sell the business, a year ago, and it almost happened, almost sold to somebody, and then their partner decided to drop out like at the last minute. And thankfully that was actually a good thing, because kind of from that, I was like, after that, I was like, well, what am I going to do now? Like I guess I just need to make this grow again. Like I don't really have another option. Like I'm not going to sell it. And so I took 2 months and really just went hard for 2 months, made a version 2 of the product, fixed some issues that I think were causing people to churn with the product not working well. And then also I got some new affiliates to come on board at that time. And so, yeah, from doing that, kind of got the business to growing again. And yeah, so that was kind of what got it growing to basically when I then did actually sell. And so I was able to sell for double the price that I was going to sell for. Wow. Just 9 months earlier. So that whole thing was definitely worth it. But, I had to kind of go through some bumpy road to kind of get through that.
I have some questions for you on how you decided initially to try to sell it and then not sell it, and then why you decided down the road. Let me ask a question that's a little bit more time sensitive as it relates to the story you just told first, and then we'll come back to that.
Okay, sure.
What was it about version 2.0 that was so influential in making the business get out of that stuck period, that plateau? And how did you analyze that? How did you figure out that, hey, this is probably what it needs to get out of this situation that it's in?
Yeah, I mean, in some ways I still don't completely know. So kind of the idea was like kind of give the whole product a new skin, kind of redesign it, just give it like an easier to use kind of interface. And so it was kind of like starting from square one a little bit. And I think in that process, hopefully fixing some issues of just like getting people onboarded. Like that was always something I was trying to push for that was, I think in the first version of the product wasn't great, was people dropping off from, signing up, creating their first website to then actually like adding their custom domain. Adding a custom domain was always like the hardest step in the onboarding process. And so just making that stuff easier, I think was the big part of it. But like a nice design to the product and stuff, I think helps. But yeah, I think it was more so some of those onboarding flows that just kind of get people to actually get into the product quicker. I also added a free plan, which I had only had like a 7-day free trial. And so I think that free plan helped a lot too, just like getting people to try it out, getting more people to use it. So those were some of the things that definitely helped a lot with that version 2 of the product. And then even just like some little things, like just different bugs. Like one of the things I've noticed with the product Potion is that people really expect whatever they have in Notion, they want it to look just like that in Potion, because they're adding their content in Notion. And so that was one of the things I think with the earlier version where like, there might be little things that just weren't quite right. And so that would maybe upset people or confuse people when they're expecting like their call out blocks to look exactly like what they are in Notion. And so fixing some of those kind of bugs definitely helped as well.
Man, that's interesting too. Yeah, that free trial, I wonder how much that impacted along with the product update. You mentioned it, but it's when you sell to early adopters, especially with the way you built, like I can imagine a lot of these people watched you build this thing, so they know whether or not what they're signing up for is what they need, but then a year later or whatever it was, you're probably marketing now at this point to people who maybe didn't watch you build this and didn't see the inner workings of it. And so I wonder if that trial gave them the opportunity to go, well, all right, the idea makes sense. Let me see if it actually is what I thought it was. So that's smart.
Yeah. I mean, and that could be even what it is. I haven't thought about that you're saying that like it could be just like I was starting to get to a user base that didn't necessarily know who I was. So it's kind of like maybe some of my early like people coming back was kind of because they had seen what I was doing on Twitter and kind of, that maybe that made the retention higher for some of those people where then, later on it was like finding random people from Google search and things like that had no idea who I was or kind of what Potion was about.
Yeah, I'm building an email list basically from my Twitter audience. Like it's not very focused, but I've realized that I grew it fairly quickly. I'll use air quotes, and then all of a sudden it hit a plateau, and that's because I think like at that point, like most of the people who knew me and wanted to be on the email list had joined. And so now it's going to have to come from other sources. So that's kind of what got me thinking about it. Not that you can really do a free trial on an email list, but I feel like probably hit some saturation on that initial launch. And I wonder how much that free trial helped push people over the top. But anyways, okay, cool. That's great. So you got back off to the races. You mentioned a while back, I have in my notes that you did start working with affiliates. And I'm curious how that helped impact sales at all, if that was a big deal, a big driver, or not a big driver. I know I've long thought about if I were to bring a product to market, how important is having affiliates to the overall success of that growing?
Yeah, I mean, I think it can be definitely a big driver for a lot of SaaS businesses. Because if you think about it, like if you're trying to build like SEO, build content that people are searching to kind of find your business, if you say just had 10 more people that were making just as good content and they're in the search results and people are following their content, you're going to get more people finding your product. Plus, I think just the aspect of the content not coming from you, like obviously you're going to say your product's great and that people should use it, but having just some person that creates content online say good things about your product, I think definitely can be even more valuable to people that are coming and trying to see like if they think your product's going to be good. So yeah, it was definitely a big kind of lever for Potion. And I think the true thing with affiliates that I've heard a lot is that it's kind of the really just the top couple people, top couple affiliates that really bring in kind of everything. Because I probably had around 100 people signed up for the affiliate program, but really the top 3 people were really the only ones bringing in a good amount of people. A lot of those 100 weren't bringing any. It was probably just like someone that signed up to maybe get their friend to join or something. But yeah, like my top affiliate was constantly doing around $300 a month of revenue for themselves, which is pretty cool that they were making some good revenue off of the business too. So yeah, finding a couple of those, I guess, like affiliate whales, I guess you could call them, like that can bring in people, is really, key, I think. And so I even, what I did was I even went through Ahrefs, and was searching to see who's ranking for these different key terms that I care about, Notion website builders and things like that. And just reaching out to those people and be like, hey, you're already creating content for similar stuff. Could you, could we partner together? Could you be an affiliate for Potion? And so that's where I got a couple people. And so, yeah, kind of finding those people that are already in motion, I think, to do what you're kind of wanting already, I think is it's just kind of the easier step there instead of just getting a random creator, something like that. Also kind of what helped with me with Potion is there's kind of these Notion creators on Twitter and stuff where it's they create content about Notion. They, probably have some templates or info products that they sell. And so there's kind of already this community of creators within my niche that I was able to kind of reach out to, which is definitely helpful. So, with most niches, I'm guessing there's something like that. There's probably some creator, someone out there that's creating tutorials, how-tos about products that are similar to yours or something like that. So I think, yeah, finding those people that already have audiences, usually that's where you'll find your valuable affiliates. And with my plan, I would split 30% of the revenue with them. And so, and that's for life. So hopefully it's a deal that is enticing enough to get people to want to sign up for that. But yeah, so that's kind of what worked out for me. And that was another part that just helped the business to grow later on, in the later, last year of the business, where kind of getting through that plateau that we were talking about. I think that's what really helped.
That's great. That's great. Great feedback too for people who are wanting to think through, and also kind of just shared it quickly and moved on. But that's a great way to find affiliates and to find ways to work with people. I hadn't thought about that. So, you also mentioned SEO. And at one point trying to get this to get Potion to show up in search results. What kind of things did you do there? Was it successful? Did you have a lot of success with the SEO push?
I don't know. It didn't seem like it was that successful. I mean, to some degree with SEO, it's a kind of a time game too. It's just waiting for things to the changes to kind of get updated in Google's search indexing and stuff like that. So kind of what I did was I probably got to where I had around 15 blog posts just around how-tos for Notion, things that would rank decently high in searches for Google. And I paid a consultant or a contract company to make a couple articles basically. So I was having some people make the articles for me. Most of those never really got many hits. So that didn't seem to do too much. Another thing I tried was I built kind of this free marketplace of widgets. So another thing that people like to do in Notion is embed little widgets that do things into their Notion workspace or embed those widgets onto their website. And so I created kind of these free widgets that people could just use, and it was kind of connected to the Potion website. And so that was a way that I could just kind of make a free tool for people to give to people, but then hopefully in the process they learn about Potion that way. And that started to get 3,000 hits a month. So that, it did something. And I did see a little bit of people trickle over from there, but it wasn't a huge conversion because, some of those people weren't necessarily looking for a website. And so, trying to find the people that are actually looking for what you're selling is definitely key, I think, with SEO for your SaaS is hitting those key terms where it's this person is in motion, where they're showing they're kind of expressing through their search terms that they're trying to solve a problem that maybe you actually solve. So those are definitely the key words, I think, for SaaS that are the most valuable for you to kind of hit. And so like the widgets one, it definitely got more people like seeing Potion, but not a huge conversion from people that are actually looking, for a website. So yeah, I think I got the Potion website got around to 20,000 views a month. And out of that, I'm trying to remember, just to make sure my numbers are right. I think I would just guess it was around maybe 5,000 of those were from Google, something like that. So it was definitely starting to work to some degree, but it wasn't like a huge marketing growth for me. The affiliate stuff was definitely higher on that list.
Cool. So back to the sell or hold question that I teased earlier. You went out to sell it when it was at a plateau. That didn't work out. You grew it more. Then you decided to sell it. I mean, this is a question like everybody goes through at some point when they have a little bit of success on a project. Do I hold it? If I hold it, do I focus on growing it more, or do I just kind of, cash flow it as they were? Or should I sell it? Why should I sell it? Am I leaving too much on the table if I sell it? Or is it better to take that? Should I sell it only if I have a need for that money or a way to invest that? Or is it good to sell it just because it's the right time, even if so many questions around this. So maybe I'd just love to hear from you, why you chose to try to sell it the first time, why you didn't end up selling it, and then why you went on to kind of sell it.
Yeah, so the first time it was definitely kind of coming out of like a worse place of just like, I don't know how to make this business grow more, and I'm not sure if like I want to spend more time on it because of that, and so maybe I should just kind of sell it and move on. So definitely not like a place to come out of strength, I think, to sell your business. Like you're probably going to get a worse price for it for selling for that reason. But if that's what you got to do, like that still can be a decent outcome or a decent way to move on from your business. The second time it was more like, especially with like indie hacking, solo entrepreneurship, bootstrapping, like it is more just like, okay, what do you kind of want to do with your time? And so it is definitely more of a personal preference. And so for me, like I was already starting to dabble with different projects over the year or so for fun or on the side. And I'd been working, on Potion for 2.5 years. So I was kind of getting to the point where it's kind of getting this edge of like, I want to like do something new, try a different challenge, maybe do something in a different market, a different niche. And so, that was kind of the main driver from the start with, wanting to do something different. And so then kind of coming down to like, okay, do I just kind of sit on Potion and just spend like that minimum amount of time that we were talking about, like 2 hours a week, just kind of upkeeping it while I start something else? Or like, is it smarter just to sell it now? And so with that question, I kind of came to like kind of knowing that like I might have weeks where it's a little bit of time, but there's always kind of that, even just in the back of your mind, like, oh, like if something breaks or something happens, like I have to jump on it really quick to kind of fix things, keep things going. There's kind of always like that, like, okay, what if things kind of degrade over time and then I need to come back to the business if it doesn't keep growing like it was. So there's never, it's just never completely passive. And so kind of just knowing that like I'm going to have to spend some time on this either way, like maybe just like if I can get a good price for it, maybe it makes more sense to kind of sell it and move on. So I kind of just threw the business up on acquire.com with that in mind. Like, okay, if I get a good enough price, then like I might as well sell it now. And if not, like I can keep just kind of doing what I'm doing. And so that was kind of the plan. And since I found someone that was had a decent enough price, I just decided to sell it basically because I was ready to kind of move on to the next thing basically.
I mean, you got what looks like a great offer. People should realize like SaaS always commands a higher price than maybe selling a website that's a content site or an affiliate site or some of these other types of sales we talk about. But it sounds like you got a great price. It looks like 4x on your yearly earnings.
Thanks.
Yeah, and so I mean, it sounds like did you have a number going into it? You said like if I get a good offer, like did you have a number like, hey, if somebody offers me this much, I'll totally sell it, or was it more just like I'll just kind of see what I get and kind of make decisions as the offers come in?
Yeah, I actually had a minimum number that I wasn't going to go below, and that number actually was what I got. So 300K was basically my number, which I think is, that kind of just show I don't know, how negotiation works is like if you are willing to go below to something, like that's probably what you'll go to in a lot of cases, maybe just depending on how the negotiation goes. But like I put the business up on Acquire, listed for 400K, kind of knowing that was a little bit high, that might be hard to get that, but also just knowing that you always kind of come into the middle a little bit when negotiating. And I think, from feedback I got from different potential buyers and stuff, like 400K was definitely high on the high side. And so even though 300K was my minimum, I think it was a pretty good price for the business and what I'd built. And so yeah, I was definitely really happy with how it turned out.
You talked about Notion a couple of years ago. You were kind of on the front end of it and developing a product, a SaaS, a software that piggybacked off of something that was doing well and was growing off somebody else's platform. I can't help, as we kind of transition to the end here, of thinking about a lot of what's happening in the AI world and seeing people build little bolt-ons, plugins, SaaS products that incorporate AI. And I guess maybe to bring us full circle here and to kind of close out, like from a high level, what tips would you have for people, or maybe things to be wary of as they look at ideas in the market, as they look to build solutions, maybe to solve their own problem, but then also bring those to market?
Yeah, I mean, like first, I think starting with like what kind of business do you want to build, and are you trying to build something really big? Are you trying to build something more indie, or more something on the side? And I think especially if you're trying to build something more kind of bootstrapped on the side, kind of like I've done, like I think you want to find an idea, find a space that's like not too risky. Like especially if you're building solo, you're building by yourself, like there's just a lot more risk if you're building something that's like completely new to the market. Like there's never been an idea built like this that you're building before. Like a lot of times there's a reason for that. Like, maybe there's no need for it. Maybe there's no demand for it. But then also it's like, okay, you got to have a lot of resources to build something completely new. And so I'd say like, if you're trying to do the more indie hacker bootstrapper thing, I'd say like find an idea that's like already out there. Like there's already someone like building something, a business that's working. And then just like try to differentiate, like how can you do something similar, but then make it a little better in a certain way, or maybe narrow it down to a more specific niche. So I think those are some of the ways I like to find ideas for like bootstrapper kind of businesses. But then again, kind of like you're saying, like looking for what are the maybe new opportunities, maybe new technologies like AI that you're mentioning, that like maybe you could leverage those in some ways to kind of do something a little new. Maybe that's how you differentiate with an idea or a problem that's already kind of out there that people are trying to solve. It's just now you can solve it a little differently because of some new technology or platform that's out there that allows you to do it well. So those are, yeah, I'd definitely look for those kind of opportunities. But then also just remembering like, you got to build something that you can pull off. If you do too risky, then you're kind of going down a road that could be really hard to actually make come to fruition.
So what's next? What's next for you? What are you working on now that you've sold? Yeah. You said you sold a couple of months ago. So what's going? What are you doing going forward?
Yeah. So back when, crypto kind of was ripping and everyone was talking about Web3 and NFTs, I actually went really deep down that rabbit hole and I didn't come back. So I really enjoyed the crypto stuff. I really saw it and saw like, okay, yeah, there's definitely a lot of issues with it right now. There's a lot of hacks, there's a lot of scams, there's a lot of things that aren't great about it. But I saw the potential and saw the kind of the positive side of the whole crypto thing. And so I kind of dabbled with it even, over a year ago with different NFT projects and things like that. But basically I decided like I want to build a project that, one, I think I can bootstrap, that has optionality, but then is a part of crypto where maybe it can be, maybe that's the next wave that I can kind of surf as the next growth of the crypto wave. And so I'm building basically a content / like data website around crypto that's called TrustScore. So it's at trustscore.gg. And the idea is to basically create a website that indexes just a lot of different crypto projects and kind of gives the data and kind of shows people like how much can you trust this project. And so again, it's like it's trying to do something it's not a completely new thing. Like there's websites out there that share information on different projects. A lot of them are a little bit more on like the trading side of like, how much this token is worth, how much, what's the history of that, and like, is this something you want to invest in for just making money reasons? So this is a little bit more trying to like share some of that data, but then also add data and content around what are the aspects of this project that makes you want to trust it or not trust it. And, maybe it's a scam, or maybe it's something that could get hacked easily, and just like helping people make those decisions easier when they're evaluating if they want to get involved in different projects. And so I think it's definitely something that comes from something I care about, where it's like, I think this is a big issue in the crypto space. There's a lot of hacks, there's a lot of scams. And so trying to help that problem in some way. And then also kind of, gets my itch on just like I enjoy like checking out these different projects myself. I enjoy being a part of learning crypto stuff. So yeah, that's kind of why I've decided to kind of go down this path, and we'll see how it goes. It's a little bit different kind of business because it's not a SaaS, at least from the start. It's more of a build a website that gets a lot of traffic and try to make money maybe from ads or sponsors or something like that. So we'll see how it goes. It feels a little bit more ambitious, I think, than even Potion. And I think it might take a little bit more time to get off the ground. So we'll see if I can be patient enough to let that happen.
I mean, it sounds like you're kind of building in public again too. So everybody can come on.
I think I might.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I might. I've been thinking about it. Like, I think there has been some downsides of building public, maybe even over the last year, that have started to come out where it's like, you start to get more copycats and things like that. Like I even saw that with Potion. And like just the idea that like building in public doesn't really work as well maybe on the marketing side since it's so crowded. But yeah, I'm thinking maybe I should just share more in public again, just because I think even for internally myself, like I think it helps motivate me and just keeps me accountable to what I'm doing. So yeah, I'm thinking about kind of sharing more in public and stuff. The one thing I'm thinking about there is like maybe people don't care as much about the crypto stuff as much, which could be true, especially like my current audience and following, a lot of bootstrappers and indie hackers probably don't really care too much about the crypto stuff. So I'll have to think about that. But yeah, so I'm definitely considering it.
Good. Very good. Well, man, this has been really, really inspiring. These stories of like an idea all the way through to a successful sale are so fun to go through. And I mean, it's worth noting you did all this while working full time, like the true.
Well, so that's partially true. So halfway through running Potion, I then quit my full-time job to do Potion full-time. So about the last year of Potion, I was actually full-time on Potion. So
yeah. I didn't know that. Okay, well, fair enough. Well, you started it while you start. In many ways, that makes the story even better because you actually got a product created as a side hustle that then allowed you to quit your full-time job. So
right. Yep.
In many ways makes the story sound better. But either way, it's a really cool story of success. And I think it was really inspiring. It certainly got my wheels spinning. Before we go, like where can people follow along with what you're doing? We talked about your upcoming project and maybe they'll be able to see that kind of being built. But either way, where can people follow along with you?
Yeah, I'd say Twitter is probably the best place. Noah W. Bragg. And I do create some videos around what I'm building on YouTube as well. So I think if you just search Noah Bragg, you should find the YouTube channel. But yeah, TrustScore is kind of the new thing, trustscore.gg. And so yeah, we'll see. I'll probably be sharing a lot about that on Twitter and YouTube in public. So.
Well, Noah, thanks so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it. Thanks for sharing so many great tips and just your story along the way with Potion. Congratulations again on the success.
Thanks, and thank you, Jared. It was fun.
All right. Talk soon. Today's episode is sponsored by Search Intelligence. Here's a short clip of Ferry from Search Intelligence showing you how their agency built digital PR links to a client's website.
What a masterpiece PR link building campaign with 20 links in big publications such as The Sun, Express, Mirror, Wales online, and still landing, I would say this campaign is a massive success. We told the press that people should turn on their heating this summer if they want to save money next winter. And we landed over 20 links in national and regional UK publications for our boiler client. That's crazy. The campaign hook was pretty clever. It is a known fact, at least in the boiler trade, that if you keep your boiler off for many months, it might rust and it might get you into trouble if you keep it turned off from spring to next winter. We therefore advised the press, with an expert commentary piece, on behalf of our boiler client, that people should turn on their boilers this summer just when the heat wave is in full swing. This way they can avoid a boiler failure next winter and save money. Massive publications picked up our story, including The Sun, Express, Mirror, Wales Online, and a few more dozen publications, giving our client links, lots of links, and lots of happiness hormones. No wonder that so many journalists covered our story, as this headline is a massive link magnet to their audience. This case study highlights the fact that a clever hook can be applied to any insight or story to make a campaign more successful and more compelling to journalists. Can you imagine when people see this headline in the news, "You should turn on your boiler this summer"? There's no way they would not click on it. I would click on it. So this was the hook, and this is why this campaign was so successful. I hope this video inspires and shows you what's possible with a clever hook.
If you want similar link building PR campaigns for your website, head to search-intelligence.co.uk and get in touch with them now.